Welcome to Social Media Club Hamilton for our April meeting. So, first of all, before we get started, I just want to thank you to Kate and Wintech for having us in this venue again. And we do have the next couple of meetings lined up, the next couple of speakers lined up. So we've got James, who does photography for charity and has been using social media to do that. He's coming in 2 months' time. And then in 2 months after that, one I'm looking forward to quite a bit, is Kate Jenkins will be coming and talking about crowdfunding. She's just started a new company which is just about crowdfunding. And so obviously that uses a great deal of social media. I think it's just an extension of social media, as I mentioned last time. So before we get started with the speakers, what I thought we'd do is talk about a couple of things that have happened in social media over the last couple of months. So who's heard of My NYPD? Did anybody hear about that?
Yeah.
So for those of you that didn't hear,
ultimate selfies.
That's so good.
the police department in New York decided it would be a good idea on Twitter if they took a photo of a cop with somebody hanging out by the cop car, arms around them, smiling for the camera, and they said, you should do photos of your interactions with police and hashtag it, MyNYPD. So that didn't go so well. Truncheons were involved, blood, people getting kicked on the ground, all sorts of stuff, and it was a bit of a nightmare. So what do you guys think that they could have done maybe a bit better about that? What do you guys reckon about that?
Not do it at all.
Yeah, not do
Not do it all? Yeah, exactly. So who's heard of Gary Vaynerchuk? Like Gary V. He's a big social media guy. He's very much a business guy. He started Wine Library TV, and he started his own VaynerMedia now. He said they should have said, so when he was asked about this time, he said, no, what they should have done is said, send your pictures in, we'll vet them, and then we'll post them out. And a lot of people in social media got up in arms about that and said, no, social media is about being free and open and not controlling the medium. But that's the whole point. That's why we have the social media club, is because there are different points of view for everything that we do. And there are times when, yeah, it should be free and open, and whatever's there should be free to everybody to see. But at other times, if you're in a business and in a marketing environment, absolutely you need to be able to control these things. So that's one side where the exposure that NYPD got was not what they really wanted. On the other side, only last week, there was, and I hope I don't offend anybody with this, there was a porn star. I actually thought that was a euphemism. I didn't actually think those things existed. But this porn star has a huge Twitter following. And she posted on Twitter that she would give sexual favours for somebody who built a decent Lego model. So within seconds, she starts getting photos of people obviously just Googled really cool Lego models and just attached them and sent them in. Like, yeah, I built this 3,000 piece castle in 2 seconds. But then there were actual photos of people who actually brought these things in. And that whole dissonance between a kid's toy and sexual favours obviously went riot on Twitter. What's interesting, at least to me, is that then it went to the Lego guys, blew up about it and got their lawyers involved, who contacted her and said, we haven't sanctioned this competition, can you please, stop? And she's like, okay, stopped, no problem. But of course, the lawyers getting involved, went to mainstream media and gave her way more exposure than anything else she could have done. So, regardless of your feelings on the subject, for her, great deal of exposure. And obviously, she's somebody who's used to exposure. But yeah. So that was one example of things that have happened in the last couple of months since we started, since the last meeting rather. The other thing I did want to mention is who here is really active on LinkedIn? Anybody? Okay. So LinkedIn has opened up, or is in the process of opening up the posting to everybody in the world. So they've got 200, 300 million members, right? And at the moment you can post a little update, but it's only to your friends. But there's this influencers update, which is like a blog post platform. And it can be quite big. So I asked to be let into that early, just this month. And I got in and took one of the blog posts out of my blog, which to be fair didn't get a lot of looks, really. And I put it in into the LinkedIn post thing. And it got picked up in their recruitment or whatever it is section. And within 5 days, I think I had 2,500 views, bunch of comments on there, 250 shares through LinkedIn, and I was really impressed. So if anybody is into that professional space, I would suggest you do start looking at that in LinkedIn. Once it's open to everybody, the power, I would assume, will be diluted. So if you are into doing that, if you're into writing, you can write stuff that has an impact with your intended audience, because you can obviously aim this at groups and what have you. I highly recommend you give that a go. Anyway, that's enough of the roundup of the last couple of months, social media. So today we have got 2 speakers, both talking about the same topic, and that is the Twitter Secret Santa. So we're going to start with Sam, at WebSam, if you aren't already following him on Twitter. So I'll let Sam come up and take it from here.
Thanks for that, Chris. Hello everyone. It's great to see everyone here. It's in a good venue. As Chris said, my name's Sam. I'm WebSam on Twitter. That's me in a pumpkin vest. You'll probably hear a bit more about the pumpkins later. We'll just go to the next slide. Basically, 4 years ago, I was on Twitter having a conversation with someone. I think they were in Auckland, and they were saying that their I don't know what happened there. Their workplace was having a Secret Santa, and I said that's really cool, because if you've ever done a Secret Santa in a workplace, they're pretty neat. I mean, admittedly, you normally get a crap gift from someone you don't know, but that's a risk that you take. And they said it would be really cool if it could be done on Twitter. And I thought, actually, that sounds really good. And I thought, why has no one been doing this in New Zealand on Twitter? I thought it was a bit strange, so I slept on it. And the next day I thought, let's do it. That was just to myself. So I just put the message up there and I said, hey, I want to do Secret Santa on Twitter. Who's keen? It's a $5 gift. You'll send me your details, and then at this date I will send you someone. And the messages started coming in. And like any well thought out plan, I had no idea what I was doing at all. So I was getting all these names in, and I was putting it into a spreadsheet, and I thought, oh, this is really cool, I'll just put it in a spreadsheet. Later on, how am I going to jumble these people's names up? I thought, oh, I'll just print it out, cut it up, put it in a hat. This is how logic works. And I'll just pull people's names out willy-nilly. That's who you're going to get. And I got contacted by a guy on Twitter, and he says, hey, for the last 25 years I've been an analyst for a giant company in Auckland. I work in spreadsheets, I live and breathe them, it's all I do. I'll make you a spreadsheet that does it all for you. I was like, oh, okay. Random dude off Twitter. So go to the next slide.
That's random dude off Twitter.
Yeah. This is basically it without the data in it, and I would put the people's names in there and just keep filling it out, and then I just hit randomise, and it would create all the messages for me for everyone. And then I just copy and paste and send a direct message on Twitter, and that was the first time I learned there was a limit on direct messaging on Twitter. And, who knew? You can only send 250, or it used to be, I don't know if they've changed it, but you get blocked, and they block you for a couple of hours, but you don't know when. So you're sitting there going, can I do it now? No. Okay. So that was pretty good, and right near the end, I had I think it was about 250 people sign up, and I thought, oh, this is pretty great. And then the media got hold of it, just the local newspaper and that, and it was right at the end. Like, it was like the worst point in time you could think of. But anyway, they published the story, and it was like, I think the registration had already closed, and I was like, oh, yeah. So then all these people were like, hey, I really want to sign up. So I was like, okay, I'm a real neat guy. Let's do another round of it. So I think it was about another 200 people. So I did 450 people in the first year. And I was pretty much using this, and I was sending DMs out. And once you send out all these names, and people get their person, and the excitement built, and your phone's just going mental with messages. It was pretty cool, actually. It's a real good feeling. And after Christmas has been, or when they're supposed to have sent their gift, whatever comes first, you get people going, hey, I didn't get my gift, where is it? Or did this person get it? And it was just question after question. So if we go to the next slide, this is my biggest friend in the world, Dropbox. I had that spreadsheet set up in Dropbox. I could access it from anywhere, and I was just getting hammered. So I'd be out of town, working, wherever. I had to access the spreadsheet and go, hey, did you send a present to this person? Did you get a present? And when it's going on when it's still going on in March the following year, you're sort of going, it's a $5 gift, people, seriously. So that was all good.
I've still got presents sitting on my desk that I can't find owners for.
So Rob knows what it's like. So
Sorry.
No, you're right. So in the second year, I made a website, real simple, and I had all the information on there so people could actually figure out how it was going on instead of asking me or trying to get word of mouth. I raised the limit from $5 to $10, and I had a few complaints about that. Someone was like, oh, I'm a poor student, I can't afford $10, and we're freaking out. And I said, look, it's up to $10. I don't care what you send. Send a $2 gift, it's fine. And then people, oh, what about if it's a big company? And I said, what about a big company? And they said, well, I see you've got some big companies involved. I mean, we had people like Telecom, I think Vodafone was on board, some of the banks came on board. And I said, well, if they send you something and they say it's worth $10, I don't care. So, if they give you a car and it's worth $10, good on you. And a few people got some pretty cool stuff, like there was tablets and cell phones and stuff flying around, and they could upload their photo and you could see what people got. And the second thing I did, which helped me a lot, was there's a plugin you can get for WordPress, and it manages registrations for conferences. And that's what I was using, and it was modified by me to do what I wanted, but basically it was capturing all the registrations, and then that was exported out into a spreadsheet, and then that was put into the randomizer thingy. And I still had no real system for sending out messages. I think that year and the third year I just used email. I could see who I sent to and make sure they got it, and it sort of worked quite well for me. But the only downside to that was once you sent, say, the first 20 or so, people on Twitter started going, oh my god, I've got my Secret Santa person, and people were just going, where's mine? And people said, man, you must have real good patience, and I was like, no, not at all. You just can't see it on Twitter. But when I'm at my house screaming at the computer monitor, my flatmate's going, oh no, what's wrong now? So I took a day off work just to send out emails. Why do you need this day off for? Well, I've started this thing. I'm going to send out about 600, 700 odd emails. So that was pretty good. And in the second year, I got a phone call from a radio station actually, and they said, hey, we really like the Secret Santa thing that you're doing. And I said, oh, that's cool. We'd like to possibly run it for you. We'd rename it, rebrand it, and do everything, but you're pretty much still in control. I was like, oh, okay. They said, we've got unlimited resources we can have this thing up and running in 2 days, nationwide, on every morning show that we own or broadcast on. And I was like, oh, okay. And they said, tell you what, sleep on it, we'll ring you back tomorrow. And I thought, oh. So I put it to Twitter. And I said, hey, radio stations rang me. They want to run this thing. What do you reckon? Boom. I think I had 50 replies in about 2 minutes. Phone was just going mental. And everyone goes, nah. We don't want to share our data with a big company. We want to share it with the random, hairy, giant pumpkin grower. I was like, okay, yeah, that sounds safe. We'll go with that. So, yeah, carried on with that. Got a bit more media in the second year, and that was pretty good. I have no idea what the next slide is.
Before you go to the next slide, just to clarify, you're not making any money out of this?
No, I'm not.
No. And you're just doing that for...
I'm just doing it for the love of people on Twitter. And a lot of people can't get their head around that fact. So, like, people I used to work with, they'd be like, you need to be making money from this. And I said, well, how do you propose to do that? We don't know, but you should be making money from it. So, no. And it's interesting because once you figure out what drives you, like for me, money's not a motivator. It's about fifth on the bottom. So interacting with people and fun and excitement, that's top for me. Money's further down the list. And in the third year, there was more craziness going on. I got a second monitor to hook into the laptop. It was like a lifesaver because I have that screen on all the time with the spreadsheet. And every time someone mentioned, I could just quickly look up and scream at this, yell at the screen every now and then. And I posted this photo and I said, oh, the team's hard at work at Secret Santa. And a lot of people think that's me and my brothers, but it's actually me 3 times. It's just Photoshop. But not many people realise that. And they were going on about, because they actually thought there was a team. And I'm like, no, there's no team. It's just me. Shit. So that was my setup, basically, at my old place. I basically lived at that table. And my flatmate couldn't eat there. But it was pretty good.
Was that, the previous slide where you had the Christmas paper on the thing, was that the first time you sort of started to put in a bit of a kind of look to the whole Twitter Secret
logo?
Santa? Was that sort of,
yeah, graphics and it probably was because it was the first year I had the website and I couldn't really think of an actual logo and I usually leave things to the very last minute. Yeah. So it was like, register tomorrow, I've just built this. I hope it works.
Yeah, oh no, that's just because the wrapping paper's cute. I mean, it's a cute idea.
Yeah, so a friend of mine helped me with that.
Yeah.
Because I had no idea what I was doing.
Thank you.
That's right. So we'll go back one. So third year, people were still getting upset because they weren't getting their presents, and I put in a box on the website that said, if you've got a tracking number for something, can you please put that in? Because when I get asked, I can say, this is the tracking number. It wasn't compulsory and I couldn't figure out how to make that compulsory because it was up to the people how they wanted to send it. I didn't want to say, you have to use this size courier bag, rah. So, but at one point, people were just going, I haven't got my present, I haven't got my present. And I wrote a tweet and it said, if the worst thing in your life is that you haven't got a $10 gift from some random person off the internet, I think you're pretty sweet, It just put things in perspective. Because, but a lot of people, the only gift they got for the whole Christmas was what the Secret Santa person sent them. And that was because they had no family or they're from a different country. People said, what happens if I'm out of the country? I already want to take part. And I said, well, if you provide a New Zealand postal address and get someone to send you a gift, or you send one from overseas to New Zealand, you can be in. Okay, so that was cool. So it was about 850 people, I think, on the third year. But basically what happens right at the end is, for it to work properly, I need an even number. And I usually end up with an uneven number. So I'll say, hey, can anyone help me out? Another 20 people. And then
it's still uneven.
Another 20 people. And then and the odd person would send a second or third gift just to help out people that didn't get anything. I think I only got questions until February that year, not March. But one person, their Secret Santa was an old man. I don't know where he fitted into Twitter or anything, but he turned up at the person's house and said, but in February, "Hi, here's your gift." That freaked her out. Yeah, that was probably the only one. Oh, the only other weird one was, I think it was in the second year, Patrick Gower from TV3, the political reporter, he took part. And his gift to his person is a signed photograph of his head, hand delivered to their office. He turned out, "Hi, Patrick Gower." So that's pretty cool. But I was running a list of about 10 to 20 people, and their requests were, "I cannot get this person because of whatever the reason was." And I respected that, and I said, "Okay, cool. You will get a person that you know, and vice versa, because privacy reasons or whatever it was." And I went, "Yeah, that's fine." So that was pretty cool. And about this time, I was thinking, "Oh, what am I going to do for next year? What am I going to do for next year? Because I'm at 850, it's going to be more, it could possibly go a bit crazy, and it's reasonably stressful dealing with people on Twitter, day in and day out. It just doesn't stop, because people use Twitter at different points of the day. So I'm a morning person, and I don't function very well at night, so I'm sort of like half asleep at a computer, don't know what I'm doing. And these people were messaging at midnight and stuff, and I just had to go to sleep and wake up and try and deal with it before I went to work. But I sort of made the decision, I'm going to see if someone else can do this. So I put a post out, it was quite late in the piece, I should have done it earlier, but leave things to the last minute. And I said, "Hey, look, I'm thinking of maybe handing over Secret Santa to someone else, and who out there could do it?" And I had about, it wasn't many replies to be honest, but I think there was about 3 individuals that were keen. And I didn't know them, they were just on Twitter. And in the back of my head, all I could think of was, these people want to monetize it, somehow they want to make money out of this. And that's not what it's about at all for me. And that was something I tried putting across to people, and I think a lot of people that know me knew that as well. So I sort of and I said, no, not really, not too keen. Then I got a message from the New Zealand Post team, which Rob's part of, and they said, "Hey, we might be keen on doing this. We have to talk to a few people, but we do the letters to Santa for the kids, and that's a not for money sort of thing that we do." And I put it out there on Twitter, and I said, "Hey, if a big company wants to run this, and it's a well-known company, what do you reckon?" And all these people came back, and they were all guessing, and they all thought it was retail. Like, oh, it must be Mighty Ape, or it must be this, or it might be that. No. And I told a couple of people, and I said, "Hey, how do you think that would be with New Zealand Post?" And they went, "Oh, never would have guessed them, but that actually makes sense. You're sending stuff in the mail, you have to use some sort of mail service. It's not like they're going to go, hey, and it sort of, it worked. And then we had a few more talks, Rob and myself and Rob and his team, and it was pretty good, because Rob said, "Hey, we've got to talk to," I think it was one big week you had to get it passed, and I think Rob's words were, "I think there's a team of 5, was it, at that point?"
Yeah.
He goes, it's just us, a team of 5, it's the small team we had. We've told the marketing team to piss off out of it, because we don't want them to run it." I don't know if those are his actual words, but that's what I'm going to say. But it was pretty good, and I wanted to, if we go to the next slide, I decided to work on more giant pumpkin related things. That's me and my pumpkin boat, as you do. So that's a 550 kilo pumpkin, and I'm in a 450 kilo pumpkin, and that's the first time anyone in New Zealand's done that. So,
And you're winning.
In New Zealand, so there are other people that race pumpkins.
yeah, it's a big thing in America.
Okay.
So that's a whole other story, just for another day. But we could either paddle or put an outboard motor on the back, so we went with paddles that time. And it worked really, really well. It didn't fall out. They were really stable. Like, if you think of making a boat out of a pumpkin, go for it. But basically, back to Twitter Secret Santa. We went through the process and I handed it over to Rob. And now Rob's going to tell you about the New Zealand Post side of things.
Alright, so in a sense, imagine us sitting in a big corporate and being kind of terrified because there's a lot of history of big corporates taking on social media stuff and just killing it. Just taking in some sort of money-making aspect to it or trying to be too much to it. So this is part of the website we put up eventually, but this sort of represents the handover we did between Sam and ourselves. And we did this really transparently, and we were, there was 2 or 3 phone conversations with Sam, and it was just, okay, we need to do this right, we need to make sure we're getting this right. I need to make sure that I've got some crucial people from external communications, from Marcoms, from all these sort of different parts of the business, who are basically going to say, no, you can run this. Your team can run this, and you can be pretty free about the way you run it, and it's not that money. So we ended up sort of exchanging blog posts in the end, so making sure the community was really, really owning it and totally informed about what we intended to do. So that was going really well. And then I think the next day or something when we put these blog posts up, it did this, and we're like, So straight mainstream media, boom, New Zealand Post takes it over, and we're thinking 850, what do we reckon it's going to be this year? And have we thought about this sort of stuff? But in parallel, what we've been doing is also, because my team is it's 5 sort of core people, probably 11 or 12 total, and some of those people are customer experience and user experience people, and they said, well, let's interview a few people and talk to people that did it last year and see how it went and see whether. And I was saying, yeah, that's fine, but I'm not happy to take it and change it unless we've got permission from the community, right? So I have to go back and ask them if we can change it. But what we did is interview people, and there were a couple of problems. One was this creepy stalker problem. The people who had sent, who found out the address of somebody on Twitter could then actually work out where they lived. And we were like, oh, as a New Zealand Post brand that's taking this on, could we really be part of that anyway? Okay, so let's have a think about that one. And the other one was when we talked about 6 or 7 people, just keeping it small, and 2 of these 6 or 7 hadn't got a gift. And we were thinking, well, we don't think this is representative of the whole, but there are some people who aren't getting gifts, and could we somehow clean up these 2 problems? So we went out again to the community and said, hey, we've got this information, we've got these couple of problems, could we fix these, and this is the way we think we could fix it. And my team was even more conservative than me in terms of, because the only way we could really fix these things was to introduce New Zealand Post and the New Zealand Post account into this conversation. But we really didn't want to do that. We really we're taking this on. So again, it was like, Sam, what do you reckon? How do you think people will respond to the New Zealand Post account? Is this? And I've got absolutely no indication that you guys, couldn't do that. It's find out. So we went. Feedback came in. No, I think that's going to be all right. So we proceeded with that stuff. We continue to go through here. This is another indication of later on the piece. Shit, here we go again. Every time it sort of gets mentioned or a data approaches, boom, it goes again. And so our initial plans were, okay, similar to Sam, we can keep this reasonably small. We'll just book a meeting room, lock the meeting room, the presents can go in there, and then when this sort of hit, we said, okay, stuff this. We've got big warehouses with big lock cages and stuff. Let's just use some of that. So we started to take this a bit more seriously in case it went 10 times or a bit bigger. Let's continue. So this is the first sort of design of, let's take this stuff, and designers in my team having a bit of a play with it, New Zealand theme, Santa, New Zealand birds, that sort of stuff. I think there's another one of what it looks like finally. So we ended up looking like this basically, and what they were thinking of is, okay, we've taken this thing over, it needs to be sort of lightweight and game-like, needs to have New Zealand Post, but actually, if you really look at it, the New Zealand Post logo is in the top bottom left corner somewhere. It just doesn't matter. Who cares who's running it? It's a small team within New Zealand Post that are taking this on. And to be honest, it turned out to be as much personal time as it did New Zealand Post time. Probably a little bit more personal time, the evenings, I relate to that. But what we wanted to do is relate it still to New Zealand Post, since we had to buy it, and actually they were contributing a lot of the time, and we're certainly running on the infrastructure. So they were very supportive.
Can I ask a question? So when you said before about the account, So what that means is instead of sending it to the individuals that are getting it, they're sending it to you guys?
Yeah. So the change we made is that you basically could send it to somebody's Twitter handle. You know, so you just send it to their Twitter handle at a standard address. And what we'd do then is, okay, well, we knew who that Twitter handle really.
So at WebSand, care of New Zealand Post, whatever,
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
So they
Brilliant.
register their Twitter handle and their address on your site.
Yeah.
So that, okay, so then basically at your point, so it gets sent to New Zealand Post, obviously it's New Zealand Post anyway.
Yeah.
And then you guys just redistribute.
Yeah,
So
who is that? Yeah, change the address, relabel it,
oh yeah.
how it goes in. Yeah.
brilliant.
And that would mean that being playing that middleman role, we could solve that address problem because you never get to stalk the person in reality because it's a different kind of stalking. That's not a good kind of stalking. And the other is, as we get to know who sent the gift in and who hasn't. Right?
Ah, yeah.
So what we did is, okay, well, if you haven't sent a gift in, well, you're not getting one. And as soon as we suggested that idea, there was somebody immediately back, yeah, excellent, I get to know who doesn't send gifts, I'm going to blame them on Twitter. We're like, that's not the idea here either. So we're not going to let you know, right? So what we're going to do is somebody said, oh, they can go to charity, send those things to charity. We're like, that man's not the right idea. So we ended up with, okay, anybody that, if we had gifts that couldn't be sent out, then they'd go to charity. And then we had sponsors come on board. So Mojo Coffee came on board and said, hey, there's going to be people without gifts, can we help? And so, well, that's a great idea to do. We'll take that. And then a couple of our guys in turn, we've got this Royal brand that sends, and they send out, a bunch of gifts. So we basically managed to patch the gap. So it all came together. If we can go through here and see some of it. So this is us being really clear about we've changed something. So the two aspects of it is that you're using your Twitter username as the address.
Right.
And the other bit is that if you don't show up with your gift, you ain't going to get it. So there's no motivation to play this unless you're playing fair. Now we didn't want this to be a big thing because it wasn't a big thing last time. But it just there were some people that we thought might be gaming the system. We just didn't want that. So
And the community would have responded well to that. Sure.
yeah, well they did, but it was a change. So we were nervous about it, right? Because that wasn't part of the initial deal. When we sold to the community initially, they said, New Zealand Post are taking this on. It's not New Zealand Post taking us and changing it.
Yeah.
That was not, so it's like, do you mind if we change it? Oh, you don't want us to change it? We'll not change it. But these were gentle things we thought were clearly, but we're still very nervous about it. So we got approval for those things before we proceeded.
Cool.
So this is another thing that we got kind of excited about. Wow, if we're getting all these gifts into a central place, we could have a dashboard. Let's have a dashboard. Let's build a dashboard. So this is the dashboard. So basically, when you came in and you logged into your account via Twitter, because we enabled you to log in via Twitter and then basically created you a little dashboard, you could say, well, who are you Secret Santa for? This person, right? And is your gift for that person? Where is it? Is it coming yet? Yes, we've got it. Rest easy, we've got it. And this bit is the other direction, right? In terms of, well, the gift for you, it's arrived. It's just mental, this bit was mental. Right? It's arrived, it's on the way. And at the moment, it's going here. But we could do some really cool stuff in terms of, oh, you're not there anymore? Click, change your address. That's kind of cool. So people could move around between when they registered and when they wanted the gift later on. And we got like 130 something people who did move within the few weeks that we had. Imagine that was a nightmare. Didn't see that coming.
No, and that was the thing. You'd be like, can you register an address that you'll be at by this date? Yeah, sweet. And then 2 days before, I just decided to move. Okay, so you had to try and contact the other person. Okay.
So that was kind of cool. And the last bit was like, have you got no idea? Because we had lots of people say, I don't know. Okay, well just click that button and we'll hold it until the 15th of January. Because again, this magical online world, we were just like, when that sits that in the database, just stick it over there for a while. So it's 1,500 parcels, or even we thought 15,000, which is what we were worried about. We were happy with running this model. If it went 100 times that, we were screwed. But we were just like, okay, we can deal with it this deal. So this is the kind of stuff that we're getting, just like people, we could see them doing it because of the amazing analytics that we wire up to all our properties, People like, refresh. It's like, dude, calm down. It's like, thank God we didn't run up that box in the corner and put it on the proper service. And this stuff just responding to, the stuff, and we wired in some fancy stuff so that you can actually click a button and it goes through update and you get a label. You put a nice online label for this stuff just because the guy in the corner, developers, they thought, right, it's just fun. So we had a bit of fun with it as well. Yeah, exciting. So to your point, in terms of we wanted to keep it really sort of informal and easy. So you basically signed up, gave us your address, we created it with the Twitter handle, and we had some fun with legal getting the Secret Santa clauses through, which will take the piss a little bit, but that is through. We've got secret feedback on it. So this is when it hit before Christmas. It was just like, we're bigger than Christmas. Holy shit, we're bigger than Christmas. It just went completely mental, and this was 24 hours straight, and then again at periods when the gifts were being opened. It was just crazy. So that was cool, exciting. Now this is the kind of stuff. We had a wall full of this. There's just so much of this. You can't think 23,000 or something. But people really, really enjoyed this game around. The fact that, and all you're doing is facilitating it because you just made his. Yeah. You know?
So how many people were there?
So I'm just short of 1,500.
Wow.
But what we were scared about was this first mainstream media, and then some TV companies sniffing around it. So almost ran, about 2 or 3 times. It almost ran. And we're like, is this a good thing? I'm not sure. I suppose this is a good thing, but it almost went completely gangbusters. Because we've done no promotion. We're just keeping it absolutely within the community. It was just a handover. There's nothing in it for us, So it ran at a level, I think, which was good. Again, I think we're in the same position this year. Or if it just does tips over, then it might be different. But we're kind of prepared for this now. Okay, keep going. So this is sort of behind the scenes. These are racks in a real mail house when the Auckland Mail Centre basically was handling this stuff for us. And we had guys really in elf costumes basically in the mail centre doing this stuff, which was they really got into it. And this is
sorry.
if you go, this is some of the challenge we had. Now this one is, we're good, but who's this way up? There was no sort of Twitter handle on some of these things at all. So they'd sort of taken the fact we were working this magic, taken the Twitter handle, translated it into an address, and just thought, I'll sort that. So a bunch of these guys are like, okay, it's about this big, it's in brown paper, who wants this? So that was part of the game. And this is present opening day, and there's plenty of these, but these are sort of 3 of my favourites, I guess. This is, he's reasonably well known. But somebody identified that he had been an Air Force pilot in the past. This is only a piece of it. They'd sent him an authentic letter of a mission that he had to undertake. And part of the mission was he had to build his own plane to do this World War I mission or World War II mission or whatever. And he just went to town on it. It's just like the whole evening he was just posting, I think over many days, and he put dust on the undercarriage and all sorts of stuff. It was awesome. Now this one is like, somebody obviously, I guess that's Harry Potter, right?
Yeah.
So that was exactly what they wanted. Not exactly what I would want, but it's exactly what they wanted. And this was where it went wrong. Somebody got this guy completely wrong.
The funny thing with the nail polish one is that's Finn, and he's sometimes here at Social Media Club.
Oh, really? But how good a sport is that? He was up till it's 2:30 in the morning. He got it that evening or that afternoon, and he's still painting his nails. Awesome. He's totally confused about why he's got nail polish. It's part of the game, so that was cool.
You got to tweet that shit.
There's plenty of stories like that. So then we get down to numbers, the last sort of 4 slides of the numbers. So we've got like 23,000 mentions on NZ Secret Santa, and sort of top 10 mentions, 24 hours, like I said, for 24 hours when they were open, it just went absolutely gangbusters. This was funny because I really used that just to go around and sort of cry about it. It's like, we were from nothing to beating NZ Post and Kiwi Bank on Twitter. Boom! Sorry, who are you guys? They were connected with NZ Post because I got a bit of an internal sales game to make, and I said, you gave us a bit of freedom to do this shit. Well, it's the best thing happened to NZ Post on Twitter ever. Influencers played, so a lot of the people, that was part of the pitch when I was walking around, is that if you let us this freedom, then it's not about the 1,500 people, it's the people that those 1,500 are.
Yeah.
And they are serious influencers. You gotta have a look. So I just said, okay, this guy, look at him. There's people with Guardian playing. And there's people, the personalities have way more reach than those 1,500. So there's all sorts of complicated algorithms that people apply to reach. But the reach of this is pretty spectacular.
Didn't Kim.com say?
Almost.
I thought he did.
Yeah. Well, we can't leave that story for a little bit because everybody's like, oh, I got it. So it's not actually playing. But yeah, anybody might get it. That's right.
If he was, someone could.
But I mean, you got people like Telecom and those big guys have been generous in previous years or whatever playing. And there's a real chance that, but it's not what it's about, right? So we wrote a blog post about that's not what it's about. Don't get in it for the for the receiving, get in it for the giving. And I think people really responded to that way. So there's some big follow blog posts that went out. I did a whole bunch of radio interviews right in the middle of having my latest son, which was interesting. And the newspapers covered it, so we got good coverage. We didn't get TV coverage, which I think would have been the straw on the horse's back. And as I said, in terms of a postal type thing, again relevant for us, that we had these people that use this sort of indirection of addresses to change your address. And this is a concept we were actually quite interested in having a bit of a squiz. Imagine you ran this sort of ability to have this pseudo address outside Secret Santa. And so this is an opportunity to sort of explore that in a very lightweight way. And there's sort of 6 people. Well, it probably didn't justify the work we put into it. But it was cool to do anyway. The last one, I think, there you go. There's just short of 1,500, 160 of these that people win. So those are the sort of guys that the Santas didn't play. But we made sure nobody missed out. And the last one's that we sent this huge bundle of stuff to the release of the mission, which is kind of cool. So they got that remix up. Is that last one? Oh, that's just silly. So that's me coming directly from the delivery suite with that picture in the Dom Post, and that being the reality. Unshaven, just come from the delivery suite, in drip shorts. What could he do with me? It's like, hold that in front of your face. Say all this shit about being ugly and all sorts of stuff. That was bad.
Any questions?
I was going to ask about, so you obviously did you go with the birds, because it was Twitter and the Kiwi thing.
Yeah.
And then, so who did that? Was that New Zealand Post in-house design?
It was all in the team.
Oh, that's cool, isn't it?
Yeah, so that was Jared Bainbridge sits within my team who actually came here. There's some sort of attachment with this guy. And he I just gave him free rein. I just go for this and explore and just threw stuff up on the wall and just had a bit of, that's cool. And then, it was totally, we want to make it Kiwi, we want a Twitter connection, we want to be a bit freer than New Zealand Post strictly would do, but sort of allow it to play in the space. So.
That must have been quite a cool experience actually, and I know from social media, but just from that design perspective, to not necessarily have to sit within brand guidelines, because that's something. Because I would imagine that sometimes the students would think that they could end up in a big corporate place like New Zealand Post, but have that option of working in a design capacity within that. I think, so it's quite cool to see the way something like this, from Sam's dining room to kind of a whole range of, because there's a whole lot of, a lot of our students, they're all wanting careers in creative industries and those sorts of things, so it's kind of cool to see the way that's all meshing. Cute, I like that.
So my question, you're planning on becoming bigger and better this year, like huger this year, or?
We haven't put a lot of thought into it. I mean, there were suggestions while we were running it and shortly afterwards in terms of, can you do it for, I think there was one on tonight, can you do it for mid-year? And we're like, do you actually understand what's required?
I used to get asked to do one for Easter.
Right.
It's just chocolate. Or Valentine's.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a bit creepier.
I mean,
But I was like, no, you have no idea.
New Zealand Stalker Santa.
One time a year's enough.
hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. Exactly right. Yeah, but I mean, yes, open to doing it other times of the year, but it's a fair amount of effort. I mean, the challenge with this one was that Christmas is our biggest time. New Zealand Post almost shuts down at Christmas in terms of any activity other than just get the basics right, because the basics are everything, right? Everybody, all the parcels have to go to the right place. Sort that out. So to run that in parallel with that, we had to design a system where, and somebody commented, I walked in this post shop, I said, hey, this is for Secret Santa, and they looked at me like, what? Because we had to run a system that the entire New Zealand Post company could be totally unaware of it. and yet it would work.
Yeah.
So these parcels just went to the Auckland Mail Centre. We, the elves picked them up, put on the hats, picked up the thing, did their off thing, and out they went again. And the rest of the network just did what they normally do. Because if we try to introduce that,
And how did you differentiate like a New Zealand, like a normal parcel from person to person, and then one of these secret centre ones?
well, it had a standard address on it,
Yeah.
totally standard address. And when it got there, it had a Twitter handle at the top instead of a name.
Anything with
And
that.
so it was, I don't know what to do with this parcel. It was addressed to the Auckland Mail Centre.
Oh
It's got this funny thing at the top. Hope you can deal with that. So we're like, sweet, like you're right. We know what to do with it. But that was part of the plan. So, you couldn't just, what we really want to do is just put the Twitter handle on it.
Shit.
The post is like, okay. What do I do with this?
Tweet you and say, your parcel's here.
That'll work. Yeah. So that wasn't really going to work. So the idea was we could overlay that on a network that wouldn't have to even know about it, which is kind of nice. But yeah, we can run it other times a year. There were suggestions about that you, and I think they've done this overseas, that you sort of point the might of Secret Santa at a charitable organisation. You know, and they've had some, I think Reddit runs a version of it. It's a lot clunkier in my mind than the nice stuff that Sam set up, because you have a natural history, a genuine history of somebody's, who they are, instead of having to ask, can you tell me a few words about yourself? Which is like, it's kind of naff. But if you've got this lovely history, the same with a charitable organisation, you can imagine that they actually have something, you could publish their history that's genuine. You say, how do we knock this school's socks off? So there's plenty of ideas out there.
Yeah, I mean, from my experience, that was a big part of the fun. Was I got this name, and it was somebody I sort of knew, but I didn't really follow them on Twitter.
Yeah.
So I ended up following them on Twitter for like 3 weeks,
Well,
figuring out what they're into, so I could get the right
Yeah.
well, when
present
I
for them.
started it, the term Twitter stalking seemed to appear every Christmas. I'm on Twitter stalker. And then people were like, oh, follow this person. Oh my god, all they do is talk about cats. Oh my god, they haven't updated in 4 weeks. Oh, but there's nothing in their profile. And then you had people that had, especially when I was doing it, they had locked accounts and there was nothing in their profile. It just said Hamilton. Oh my god, they live in Hamilton. What are you going to pick? You can't send chlamydia, they've probably already got it. That's a bit harsh.
Yeah.
But I had to go contact people and say, hey, can you unlock your account, or please update your profile with something that actually makes sense to someone?
Yeah.
And it's like, I understand if you want to lock your account, that's fine, but you're taking part in this thing. And the biggest thing, the biggest buzz people get from this thing is they get a gift that's customized to them. It sucks when you get a generic box of bloody scorched almonds. It turns up and you go, oh, scorched almonds. But sometimes they get these, and people will be like, oh, I've got no money to spend. I said, make something. So the person that got me this year, I think they freaked out a bit because they're like, oh my god, it's Sam, the guy that did. And I got this note and it goes, I have no idea what to send you. But all they did was they painted a Christmas tree with little pumpkins all over it. It's on my wall in my office and it's just sitting there. It's really neat. And they said, we're not very arty at all. This is the first one I've ever painted.
Your go-to skill.
It's not hard to paint a pumpkin.
Look like an orange tree.
How did you convince, like, I always have this issue in my work, how do you convince the corporate bigwigs that something like far out and crazy and under the radar is a good idea, because that's really hard?
Yeah, I think we had some track record in terms of, the team within Post that is sort of doing this crazy ass stuff and have got away with it for a long time. I think this is the first thing off the block, so we just said, hey, then that trust wouldn't have existed. So there was a bit of that. There was also, I worked at Post for the longest I've worked anywhere in my entire life, so you form these relationships where you get this sort of trust thing as well. So I knew people in External Common, I knew people in Markham's, for almost 6 years. So it was more than double what I've worked anywhere else. It's just that you form these relationships and they're useful. So it's Rob, he hasn't messed up anything yet, he's probably not messed this up. God, it's hope he doesn't mess this up. So there was that element to it, but also I think you got some people that appreciated what this was, and if you can pitch the story and just say, hey, this is not it, it's not about us. This is very similar, and the example was great in terms of these letters to which bit of that is for us. There's none of this that's for
And
us.
I think at the end of it, like, especially after the year that you've just done, I couldn't think of another company that could pull this off as well as you guys did. You know, what you did was amazing, and I don't think anyone else would have been able to do it. But New Zealand Post never crossed my mind as someone that would want to take it on.
I think one thing that is really surprising is the goodwill around the brand, around the New Zealand Post brand. Because we were really worried about that conversation in terms of New Zealand Post making any changes to it, and New Zealand Post account being the thing that you're tying your Twitter handle to enable us to do it all, right?
You guys got the social capital like in New Zealand, you know, they could crash planes into Erebus and still everyone loves them.
But there is a little bit of that. Actually, it's New Zealand Post. It'll be all right. You know, I in other places either you're unknown or you take your hands off that thing straight away. You know, so I think we traded on a little bit of that, but equally we took that risk. You know, you've got a brand that's so highly regarded. If this went wrong, it wouldn't be very pretty either. So we're sort of carrying that weight on our shoulders as well, I guess.
Do you think it was worth it?
Oh, it was awesome fun. I mean, you know, it's just like, you know, the stories are wicked, and you get some people, you almost have tears about some of the stuff that comes through. You know, somebody donated a large sum of money to a suicide charity because they had followed this person and realised that they'd lost somebody in their family or something. They're just like, ooh, tear it up. You know, it's just these sort of stories where people have really gone to town on thinking what that gift should be. And all you're doing is just making this happen. You know? And so yeah, we were like, well, if it gets bigger, that's awesome, because it just means that there's more of these people involved and it's more of this feel-good factor. So I'd love to see it go like 100 times as big. You know, well, it's aimed for 10 times as big. 10 times as big this year would be awesome, and we'd cope no problem now that we've sussed it out. I mean, we're on the phone with Sam regularly, and it's like, this just happened. How did you do this last time? Right, okay. Stay calm. Hang on, just the manual. But now most of those things have come out of the woodwork. We know what to do when that happens next time. People change their Twitter ID during the process. Why do you do that? But what we'd stored is the Twitter actual ID, not the Twitter handle, but the Twitter ID. So we're able to cope with that. And we say, oh, we know who he is now, no problem. But it's just like, if we hadn't sort of thought of that, then, oh, here we go. Okay, so we've got like another 20 people.
How many people would do that?
Do you mean that they changed the at blah 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 or
Yeah.
the actual name?
Yeah.
They changed the at.
That's
The handle.
the
But
Twitter
they
handle.
sent to
It's on WebSam, but they changed it to Steve Smith. And then the person would be like, I can't find the person I'm supposed to follow, and you're like, what the hell?
It's like worse than changing your
and they
face.
like drop off the face of the earth. And if you're lucky, you can figure out who they were. But
If you're following them already, wouldn't it maintain it though?
yeah, but it's like Rob said, if you had the actual proper ID thing,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter.
Oh,
You're still.
But it came in addressed to what they were, not what they are.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, they're gone, they disappeared. So there's lots of those sort of gotchas, which informed all sorts of things about, you know, we've got this big document, if we do this next time. Third page, bullet points. Yeah.
How much would you need to, like, if it's scaled up like to a certain amount, what point would it still be manageable, do you think?
In terms of the relabeling and so on. Yeah, I don't know what point it would break. I mean, there'd be people in the International Mail Centre that would probably want to kill me at some point, because they, you know, they still have pretty manual processes in terms of scanning in, you know, okay, put it over there. But we've got plenty of improvement, and we kind of do this stuff. We did some really large-scale similar stuff for international incoming parcels and so on. So we've got established systems and processes where it's kind of brilliant, you know.
And in terms of that,
Yeah.
you are the logical partner. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody else could do that
Yeah.
as well as you
Well,
guys.
even at that scale, I mean, it was hard work, you know, because you actually, each one of those, it's 1,500 people, like, you know, through the middle, and there's potential for major messes. so you really have to have your systems up down in your database. They will be able to inspect what happened at all points. You know, did that look building? Get that parcel, you know, that sort of stuff. But no, good fun.
Yeah. And how big was your team? I think you mentioned there was a few
Yeah, the
people.
web team is now 11, just within my area. But the people that were initially involved were like sort of, okay, a small crew, let's do Second Saturday. And then as it approached the deadlines, we're like, shh, everybody! And we were like, initially we were going to do it, as I said, you know, it was going to be my team. I said, worst case scenario, the business doesn't buy this, we're going to be relating parcels. Who? Yeah, you guys. Yeah, we're going to go up to Auckland, we're going to be doing the relating. We were like, oh, sweet, that's cool. And as the numbers went up, I said, no, you're not. But it's the professionals. Yeah. We'll do the professionals.
Yeah.
That's what they do. Yeah.
And how many people would it take in the centre itself, like the mail centre?
Yeah, well,
Your elves, how
there-
many elves?
Yeah, well, we had like 4 official elves there.
Right.
But it touched way more people because it was just a normal flow, right? And,
Yeah.
and the only real the only process that was elf specific was the sort of relabeling, I guess.
Was that the beauty for Wild Work?
For putting the nice
It fit in
things on.
so well with everything else that NZ Post did already that it was like almost seamless.
It's very nice data. Yeah. I mean, part of the stuff that we're interested in on the basis of this, and we're trying to get our head around, is that if we issued these sort of pseudo or virtual addresses to everybody, you know, so if you had a Twitter ID and you just wanted to use that and have things delivered to that, or similar to our U-Shop service where you get a sort of virtual address. And you go into every merchant or online shop that you wanted to do, and you just put in an address, and it was always the same address.
Do you guys have anything to do with real me?
Yeah, it's another subject though. We can go there. But in terms of, we just put these addresses in, and you could move house. And of course, you could move house like people did. 130 people moved house, but you wouldn't have to update your addresses anyway because all your parcels sort of always come to this sort of virtual address. Then we find that really cool as a concept. But we carry like hundreds of thousands of parcels, and labelling hundreds of thousands of parcels on a sort of daily or weekly basis is quite hard work and so on. So we're just sort of exploring those sort of ideas. And this is a sort of nice way to explore that as well. How hard is this? What are the advantages? What's the excitement when you can actually tell people things are on the way? So you know, I don't know whether you're familiar with our U-Shop service, but you get stuff from overseas, it goes to a warehouse. You then get lots of updates about where it's at, and the feedback we get is amazing on the updates and the visibility of where things are. And so what we'd like to be able to do is do something similar, just for every delivery. Just make sure that you as a digital person, we're sending it to you, not to an address. And once we're sending it to you, you can be anywhere. You know, so the dream is that you're sitting here, you get a notification, I'm about to deliver it to home, you go, no, to me here. And we know where you are because you know GPS tells you where you are, and there we are at the door. So I can see them.
So Amazon drone just tracks you down.
Yeah.
No, we're playing with quadcopters just because Amazon cares.
Santa quadcopters.
I flew one out of our pod the other day, and everyone was like, there it is. Not quite big enough for a pass. But yeah, we're playing with a lot of these ideas.